So the question that I want to pose to you now is, do you believe that with the keyword-driven approach, that these tests have eliminated enough possible sources of change to actually be stable and not be classified as brittle again? Sadly, I don't think so. I believe that keyword-driven tests, although they are a amazing step up from recorded tests, they still have a ton of problems that will cause you to spend a lot of time debugging and not be able to maintain your automation frameworks. I remember many years ago when I was writing keyword-driven tests, it was actually utilizing QTP. I remember how hard of a time we had automating tests utilizing the keyword-driven framework, and we were doing a pretty good job. We had a good team of really smart people writing keyword-driven tests because we thought that that's the best approach, and we still would spend weeks trying to make a single test pass. Granted, we were doing a lot of things wrong, but again, we were all utilizing that keyword-driven approach, and we were wondering, why is this so hard? Why is our automation so brittle that it takes us weeks to put out an automated functional test? It was really sad, but it is a good lesson because we thought that that was the right way. We thought that this is the way that it should be done without realizing it. And that's what I want to help you guys here with today, to be able to understand that there are better ways. Regardless, so the first main issue that I see with the keyword-driven tests is that they are still wet. We are still writing everything twice. They're not dry, and they don't follow the dry principle. For example, take a look at test number 1, lines 19 and 20. How these two methods, along even with this verification, they are repeated here in test 2, and they're also repeated in test 3. In fact, almost this entire test is a repetition in each of the tests. And yes, of course, I know that these tests are literally duplicates because I just copied and pasted them. But you can see how from scenario to scenario, a lot of steps can still be repeated, right? Because our steps, we're just logging into an application. That's one of the very basic features of every application. And we can take it into many different directions from there. We can start logging in and then validating that a video opens. We can start logging in and then validating that we can select the video. We can go in, validate that we can go through an entire course. There are many different kinds of functionalities, but they all have this login functionality in common, and it is all being repeated through all of our tests. So whenever we need to make any kinds of changes, for example, a synchronization change because our application is now slower, or for whatever reason, maybe we introduced a bug that's making our application slower. So now, for example, if we have to deal with a synchronization point, we might need to come here and replace this implicit wait with an explicit wait to be able to better handle the loading of the application. And so now we have to apply this change to all of our 500 tests as opposed to a single place. I actually had that happen to me recently where I had a bunch of tests, I think a few thousand tests that were running, and then when I looked back at the results, I saw that there was about 100 tests that had actually failed. And it was really interesting to me that they had failed because I was like, what's going on? And then when I further analyzed why the tests had failed, it was actually because our application, I think, had gotten a little bit slower. And so what had happened was the test was running too fast for the application, and so now it was failing because there was a bad synchronization point. And so what I had to do was go in, update the synchronization point, and then that fixed my 100 tests. The beauty of it was that I fixed the synchronization point in a single place rather than all of these other places and all of the tests. And that made my fix really quick and really easy, and then the test passed right after I finished running them. But it does happen. Synchronization issues happen all the time. And my point is that you need to be prepared for those changes as good as you can. And unfortunately, the keyword-driven framework approach doesn't really prepare us as well as it can. Some other issues that can actually occur with a keyword-driven framework that will break all of your tests are flow changes, right? So here in this current flow, I am logging in, but I am logging in with a browser in a standard maximum window size, What if now I needed a test that logs in with a browser in half size? What if I needed a test that logs in with a browser in a mobile window? Right? That functionality is different and it needs to be handled different. And so what am I going to do? Am I going to create a completely new keyword to be able to log in a different kind of mode? Or should I have one method that handles both of the situations depending on which situation you're in? I would argue that the method is a better approach because you decrease your duplication of code and all of the methods, and now you're just stuck with one method as opposed to two methods that you need to maintain. The final piece of the puzzle that can actually break a bunch of our automated functional tests is a change to our actual driver. Yeah, that's right. Selenium can disappear. At some point, it may no longer be relevant, and you might need to replace it. So all of our tests that are using these find elements, all of these hard-coded methods for Selenium Webdriver, they're going to break. And you're going to need to replace that with an entirely new driver. And if you don't believe me that the driver can change, take a look at Google Trends with me for a second. I'm sure that a lot of you guys remember QTP, right? And here in Google Trends, what I did was I just compared the popularity of QTP versus Selenium WebDriver. And down here, you can see QTP versus Selenium WebDriver searches over time. So take a look how back in 2011, QTP used to be really popular and Selenium WebDriver didn't. And now how over time that has actually reversed, where Selenium WebDriver is becoming more popular than QTP. Yes, those are Google search trends, but what it should also tell you is that QTP is on the decline and less people are starting to use it. And Selenium WebDriver is the opposite. So if you were an individual like myself who had frameworks coded in QTP, what the heck are you going to do? You either need to maintain those frameworks in QTP and have less robust code, or you need to transition everything over to Selenium WebDriver. And if you coded keyword-driven frameworks, you were not insulated from that change. The other factors that I can actually say where Selenium WebDriver is actually now more popular than QTP is if you want to look at job trends. I pulled up here DICE and searched for Selenium WebDriver just in the Washington, D.C. area, and you can see that it has 150 positions with Selenium WebDriver. And then also I pulled up DICE with QTP in Washington, D.C., and you can see that it has 42 positions. So Selenium WebDriver actually is becoming more popular, is becoming more relevant. In fact, almost 4-to-1 jobs for Selenium WebDriver compared to QTP. So like I said, QTP is dying. So everybody that has a QTP framework or is maintaining a QTP framework, at some point, they're either going to need to get rid of it and replace it with Selenium WebDriver, or they're just going to have to maintain it until the technology becomes irrelevant. And so that's going to be a super painful change to the thousands of tests that exist there to do automated functional testing that are completely unprepared for the changes.